7 trucks rolled silently through the night, their heavy loads covered with sacks of rice that smelled of earth and sweat. But inside those trucks lay something far more dangerous than hunger or survival. Before we uncover the truth, make sure you subscribe right now so you never miss the next story that shakes the ground beneath your feet. The driver's hands gripped the wheel tighter than usual, his eyes shifting to the mirrors as if shadows could leap out and drag him away. Each mile he drove, he carried not only the weight of the cargo but also a burden that pressed against his chest like a stone. He had held a secret for too long, and now it was burning inside him. Ibrahim Traoré was waiting for him, not as a commander in uniform, but as a man who demanded truth, even when that truth could split the air like a blade. When the driver finally stood before him, the night was still, yet heavy with a scent of storm. He did not speak at first. His lips trembled, his throat dried, and his heart beat as if it wanted to escape his body. Traoré's eyes locked on his face, sharp and unblinking, not asking with words but demanding with silence. It was in that silence that the driver broke, his voice low and shaking like a man confessing to a crime. "They told me to drive rice, but the rice was only a mask," he whispered. His words fell like stones in water, each ripple carrying fear across the ground. Inside those trucks are eyes and ears, not food for the people but machines for spies. The words sliced through the darkness. For a moment, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Traoré did not move, but the fire in his gaze grew, as if every syllable had ignited a storm inside him. 7 trucks, rolling like veins of betrayal across the land, each carrying equipment that could watch, listen, and expose. Hidden inside bags of rice that every poor family prayed for, foreign powers had placed invisible chains. The driver's knees bent under the weight of guilt. "I could not carry it any longer," he said, his voice breaking into pieces. "I had to tell you before it destroyed us all." Traoré stepped closer, his face calm yet burning with silent rage. He placed his hand on the man's shoulder, not with comfort but with the force of decision. "You have done what many would never dare. You have chosen truth over fear," he said slowly. But even as he spoke, his mind was already racing, weaving through corridors of betrayal, wondering who had allowed such poison to enter the veins of his people. And as the night stretched deeper, the revelation was no longer just about 7 trucks. It was about a nation standing on the edge of discovery, and a leader about to face shadows that wore the mask of friends. The silence after the confession did not break easily. It stretched like a rope pulled to its final thread, heavy and ready to snap. Ibrahim Traoré kept his eyes on the driver, but his mind traveled miles beyond that moment. If 7 trucks had passed the border without resistance, then someone with power had lifted the gates. This was not a mistake of chance. It was a design of betrayal. He turned slowly, his boots pressing into the ground with a weight that seemed to echo the burden he carried. The air was restless, and in the faint glow of a lantern, the driver's face looked pale, half swallowed by guilt. "Where did they come from?" Traoré asked, his tone firm yet stripped of anger. The driver hesitated, his hands twisting together, skin pale with nerves. "From the north," he whispered. "They were guarded by men who spoke our language, but their eyes were strangers. They carried papers that no one questioned. Every checkpoint opened. Every soldier stepped aside as if orders had already been given." Traoré felt the words cutting deeper. If men in uniform had allowed this, then loyalty had been sold, and silence had been purchased with the currency of betrayal. He clenched his jaw, but no shout escaped him. Rage would not serve. Clarity was his weapon. 7 trucks, he murmured, his voice steady, filled not with rice, but with eyes and ears. "Do you understand what that means? Every word we speak, every step we take could be measured, recorded, and sent far away. We could be prisoners without even knowing the chains are already around us." The driver lowered his head, unable to meet his gaze. He had seen inside the sacks, just once, when a tear in the fabric revealed steel and wires glimmering under moonlight. He had touched the cold surface, felt the unnatural weight, and in that moment, he had known he was carrying more than food. He was carrying betrayal. Traoré took a step away, his shadow stretching long against the date. "You risked everything by telling me," he said. "Do not think I will forget that. But understand this. You have not only given me truth, you have given me a war that begins tonight." The driver's breath caught, his chest heavy with fear. "What will you do?" he asked, his voice breaking. Traoré looked at him with eyes that burned not with hatred, but with fire shaped by duty. I will follow the path of those trucks. I will not rest until I know where they are hidden. And when I find who sent them, I will show the world what hunger they truly tried to feed. A storm cracked in the distance, thunder rolling like drums of war. The driver flinched, but Traoré stood tall, his hand tightening on the lantern. 7 trucks. 7 shadows crawling in the dark. The night had revealed its secret, but the dawn would demand answers, and blood if needed. The thunder faded, but the weight of revelation pressed heavier than the storm. Ibrahim Traoré walked through the quiet night with the driver following like a shadow that feared its own existence. The village slept unaware, the people resting on empty stomachs, dreaming of rice that never came. Yet somewhere nearby, 7 trucks slept too, guarding not food but secrets that could swallow freedom whole. As dawn broke, Traoré gathered a handful of trusted men, warriors whose loyalty had been tested in fire. Their faces were carved with lines of sacrifice, eyes hardened by battles that spoke no words. He told them nothing at first, only that the truth had come wrapped in lies and that they must prepare themselves to see betrayal in places they once called safe. The driver was brought before them, his voice trembling as he repeated his confession. Some men muttered curses, others clenched their fists, but all of them felt the same sting, that their soil had been sold, their hunger exploited, their trust broken. "Show us the road," Traoré said firmly. "You will guide us to the 7 shadows." The road stretched long and broken, dust rising with each step, the morning sun burning through mist. As they moved north, the driver pointed out tracks in the date, heavy grooves pressed deep by wheels that carried more than rice. The land seemed to whisper warnings, the trees bending as if listening, the air thick with secrets that refused to hide. By midday, they reached the first checkpoint. A soldier stood there, his uniform clean, his rifle resting casually against his shoulder. He looked up with a practiced smile, but his eyes flickered with unease when he recognized who approached. "Commander," he said carefully, bowing slightly. "We were not told you would pass this way." Traoré's gaze pierced him. "Nor were you told to open the gates for strangers," he replied. The soldier's smile cracked, his lips parting without sound. The silence spoke louder than denial. "Who gave the order?" Traoré demanded. His voice was calm, but calm like the still water that hides the depth of a storm. The soldier shifted, his fingers twitching near his weapon, but one look at the men beside Traoré froze him in place. "The papers, they bore signatures I could not question," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. The driver stepped forward, his voice sharp with fear. "Those signatures are the chains on our necks. Do you not see it?" His words struck the soldier harder than any weapon. Traoré raised his hand, silencing the tension before it became blood. "You will stand aside," he said coldly, "because this road no longer belongs to your fear. It belongs to the truth." The checkpoint opened, but unease clung to every breath. Ahead lay more questions, and perhaps answers carved in steel and betrayal. 7 trucks rolled in their minds like a curse, and with each mile, the shadow of treachery grew darker, whispering that the worst was yet to come. The road ahead twisted through forest that held silence like a blade. Every sound, the crack of a branch, the rustle of leaves, felt heavier, as if unseen eyes were tracking each step. Ibrahim Traoré marched at the front, his face carved from stone, yet inside his thoughts cut faster than knives. 7 trucks disguised as rice, 7 shadows crossing borders under banner of deceit. What force had the power to cloak betrayal so deeply? By the second checkpoint, the air had shifted. Men in uniform stood taller, their rifles gleaming with unnatural confidence. When they spotted Traoré, whispers ran through them like sparks through dry grass. The driver trembled, sweat dripping down his neck. "These are the ones," he murmured. "They let the trucks pass as if they were family." Traoré stepped forward, his boots echoing on the cracked ground. "Who commanded you to clear the way?" His words struck like arrows. None answered. Instead, one soldier shifted his stance, his finger brushing the trigger. In that instant, every man behind Traoré raised his weapon, the forest ringing with the sound of steel prepared for blood. The silence was suffocating, and then one soldier laughed, low and bitter. "You think you can stop what has already begun." His voice was mocking, yet fear cracked its edges. "Those trucks are not yours to question. They are beyond your reach." The driver gasped, his hand clutching his chest. "You knew," he shouted, his voice breaking. "You fed betrayal into the veins of your own people." His cry tore through the stillness, shaking even the trees. Traoré raised his hand to silence the chaos, his eyes locked on the defiant soldier. "If you speak of what is beyond my reach," he said slowly, "then you admit you already know where they went. Tell me, or your silence will be your confession." The soldier's face hardened, lips pressed tight, but his eyes betrayed him, flicking toward the northern hills for just a heartbeat before returning to Traoré's glare. That single glance was enough. "We move," Traoré ordered. His men followed, hearts pounding, the driver stumbling as if the earth itself pulled him back. Each step toward the hills felt heavier, like walking into the mouth of something vast and unseen. The path grew narrow, cliffs rising on either side, shadows thickening under the dying sun. As they climbed, the driver whispered, "They will not hide them in open ground. These trucks must be buried in places no eyes can reach." His words were not guesswork. They carried the tremor of a man who had seen whispers turned into wolves. Then, from the distance, faint echoes drifted through the canyon, the grind of engines muffled by oath, the metallic clatter of chains. Traoré halted, his hand rising, his men freezing behind him. The driver's face drained of color. "They are here," he breathed. The 7 shadows breathed in the dark. And with that, the hills themselves seemed to tremble with secrets waiting to be torn open. The canyon swallowed their footsteps, the walls towering like silent judges over a trial not yet spoken. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became, filled with a metallic scent that did not belong to the earth. Ibrahim Traoré motioned for silence, his eyes narrowing as faint vibrations rolled through the stone underfoot. Somewhere close, engines pulsed like hearts buried alive. They crouched low, the driver leading them with trembling hands. He pointed toward a narrow cut in the rock, half hidden by thorn bushes and loose soil. The men moved carefully, peeling back the brush until the mouth of a cavern revealed itself, dark and breathing with echoes of machines. The driver whispered, "This is where they vanish. The trucks sleep inside." Traoré stepped forward, lantern held high, its weak flame barely touching the blackness. The first glimmer of steel caught the light. Massive tires coated in dust, their weight pressing into stone. Beyond it, shadows stretched, 7 hulking shapes crouched like predators waiting in silence. Covered in torn sacks of rice, the cargo looked innocent, but the edges of metal glimmered beneath, cold and merciless. His men drew sharp breaths, rage sparking in their eyes. "They used our hunger," one muttered, voice heavy with disgust. "They promised rice while they fed us chains." Traoré did not answer. He walked closer, pulling at one of the sacks. It tore easily, grain spilling like sand across the floor, but beneath it lay a black box wide with blinking lights, its surface crawling with switches and screens. The sight tightened his chest, his hand clenching hard. These were not tools of aid. They were silent weapons, designed to see and hear every private word, every hidden move, stripping away the last veil of freedom. The driver fell to his knees, his voice breaking. "I carried these with my own hands. I carried poison disguised as food. How many lives did I betray without knowing?" His tears carved lines through the dust on his face. Traoré placed a hand on his shoulder, steady but unyielding. "You betrayed nothing by speaking. Silence would have been betrayal. Truth is heavy, but it saves." The cavern hummed, the machines within alive even without voices. One of his men tapped the device gently, shaking his head. "These are not just to listen," he said. "They can send signals, guide others, even control what reaches our ears. They do not only watch, they shape what we believe." The realization struck like lightning. This was not spying alone. It was control, manipulation dressed as charity. Every truck was a cage, every box a chain forged in silence. Traoré stood tall, the lantern flame flickering across his face. "7 shadows stand before us," he said, his voice firm. "But those who send them hide deeper still. Tonight, we do not only face machines. We face the hand that tried to blind our eyes." His men tightened their grips on their weapons, breath steadying, hearts burning. The cavern had revealed its secret, but the true enemy still breathed outside, cloaked in friendship yet armed with betrayal. The cavern seemed to close in around them, the hum of hidden machines pressing into every breath. Ibrahim Traoré stood silent for a long moment, lantern light painting hard shadows across his face. The 7 trucks waited in stillness, their secret now exposed, but the true storm had only begun. He turned to his men, his voice low yet sharp as steel. These are not just machines. They are weapons of silence, sent to turn us into ghosts in our own land. One soldier stepped forward, anger trembling in his voice. Then let us burn them now. Let us crush the poison before it spreads. His words echoed, fierce and desperate, but Traoré lifted a hand. Fire would silence them, yes, but if we destroy the shadow, we lose the chance to see the hand that cast it. We cannot strike blindly. We must learn who sent them, and why our gates open so easily. His words carried the weight of patience forged in fire, a lesson carved from knowing that rage without direction leaves nothing but ashes. The driver looked up, face streaked with dust and sorrow. If you follow this road, it will lead to men who sit in gold rooms while we starve. They will not let you breathe once they know you hold their secret. Traoré met his gaze. Then let them try. Truth is already breathed. They cannot suffocate what has been revealed. His men began to search the trucks, pulling out boxes heavy with wires, cameras, and strange devices blinking with silent life. One soldier found a folded wedge beneath a crate. He handed it to Traoré, his eyes wide with unease. Inside were papers marked with foreign seals, but what froze every breath was a final page, signatures of men who were supposed to guard the nation, names trusted by the people. A storm of betrayal swept through the cavern. Our own leaders, one soldier whispered, his hand shaking. They opened the door. They sold us. Traoré clenched the papers, his jaw tight. The truth was uglier than he imagined, a wound deeper than foreign shadows. The enemy was not only outside the walls, it was inside, wearing familiar faces, feeding betrayal with smiles. The lantern flickered as if trembling with the weight of revelation. Traoré raised the papers high. This is the weapon more dangerous than any machine, he said firmly. This is proof. The rice was not for the people. It was a mask for control, and the hands that fed it will be shown to the people they betrayed. His men straightened, resolve burning in their eyes. The driver bowed his head, whispering, "May the truth be heavier than fear." Outside, the storm finally broke, rain crashing against the earth like 1,000 drums. As the first drops reached the cavern, Traoré stepped forward, the papers in one hand, the lantern in the other. The 7 trucks loomed behind him, silent beasts awaiting judgment. The night had given its secret, but the dawn would demand justice. And when it came, no mask of rice would hide the faces of betrayal.